Let's start with San Francisco 49ers at the Green Bay Packers. Packers favored by 1.5 here. By the way, the whole show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You'll have your lineup later today. My lineup was unveiled yesterday. We'll be talking Prize Picks. $50 off when you deposit 5. Promo codes check the mic over at Prize Picks. 49ers and the Packers. Packers favored by 1.5. This is one of those big-time featured games. There's only 3 games in the 4 o'clock window this week. This is the big one, 4:25 Sunday. Packers are 7-3. Niners just 5-5. Still very much alive in the mix in the NFC West, but running out of time here. Stacking losses.
Yeah.
The Niners stacking losses in games, as we mentioned yesterday, 3 games where they've had over 90% win probability and come back and lost.
This would be bad time. You know, the way last week it looked, certainly for a quarter, that it was really bad timing to be saying that Joe Burrow is better than Justin Herbert when Herbert goes off and just starts like dropping dimes left and right. This would be bad timing to declare the 49ers still one of the top 5 Super Bowl contenders, as I did in yesterday's show.
You did.
If they just get wrecked
right
by Green
before
Bay,
the Packers game.
Put themselves in a real hole for the rest of the season. That would be terrible timing again. Yeah, I mean, it's a big game for San Francisco. They've lost these games that they should have won, and that has left them without much margin for error when they face good teams. And Green Bay's a good team. They're well coached. They're good on both sides of the ball. This is a really tough matchup for San Francisco.
It is a tough matchup for them. And again, it's much like with the Bengals when you go play by play and you look at the performance of the offense and the defense, and it's like, all right, is there a massive difference between this year's 49ers team and last year and previous years? Maybe not, but if a handful of plays keeping you from 7-3, 8-2, but you're running out of time. Like, you just can't keep losing those games here. So I don't know how to look at the Niners other than I do believe some of the depth has been hurt. Nick Bosa's banged up as well. We know how much that game changed without Bosa rushing the passer. We were touting Brock Purdy quite a bit early in the year. Has he taken another step? Has he, he hasn't played as well over these last couple of weeks. And you keep bringing up the point maybe that the Shanahan offense is not bringing those same advantages that they've brought in recent years. I will say the 2 injuries that are huge here. Jaire Alexander missed time last week, came out of the game last week. He didn't practice as of yesterday. Nick Bosa came out of the game last week. He didn't practice yesterday. Part of the reason why I have Juwan Jennings and his projection, his receiving projection, more than his receiving projection in this game for the Niners, with potentially without Jaire Alexander. So I think the Niners have an opportunity to have success through the air against the Packers here.
Yeah, Bosa is a critical potential injury, or injury that potentially affects whether he plays or not. Remember going into the season, we were doing things like ranking, talking about sort of defensive lines and pass rushing units and all those kinds of things. And the 49ers had a really good one, but it's incredibly thin. It's like based off Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, essentially. And the depth behind those guys is nowhere near where it is with other teams that can rush the passer. So if you take away Nick Bosa, well, now you're immediately completely transforming the outlook of that group, like the whole defense, but in particular the pass rush, the defensive line. Like, that's a major, major loss for them if he's not able to play.
Just some perspective on that. Bosa has 52 pressures, 8 sacks per PFF. I like to use the PFF sack totals because it adds up the half sacks, gives them credit. Leonard Floyd's second on the team with 35 pressures. Malik Collins has 30, so he's third. But the pass rush grade, again, that is more dependent on how quickly are you winning, how dominant are those wins. Leonard Floyd has always been this grade in like the 60s type of pass rush type of guy. Not a dominant pass rusher. He's very good at cleaning up. When he's had Aaron Donald, he mopped up, had a lot of sacks. When he has a Nick Bosa, he's very good with his length at just cleaning up after someone else creates the pressure, right? Leonard Floyd is a one-on-one, go ahead and affect the game type of guy. Never really been that guy. So if you don't have Nick Bosa, you're depending on a Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins combination.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example of like if you have a defensive front that has Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd. It's like, yeah, Leonard Floyd's a useful complement to that group. If he's the if you take away the other 2 and it's just Leonard Floyd to lead the line, that's terrible. I mean, if Leonard Floyd is your best pass rusher on the field, you're in the Carolina-Atlanta world of generating nothing.
So just staying on that side of the ball, and where the Niners have been excellent, number 2 PFF coverage grade in the NFL so far this year. Renardo Green playing really well as a rookie back there. I mean, the Niners have done a nice job. Fred Warner, of course, patrolling the middle. They've done a nice job just in the back 7, generally. But with the Packers, the challenge is you just don't know who it is every week. Is it Jaden Reed? Last week it was Christian Watson. When's Romeo Doubs going to get his? Like every single week it's someone different. Tucker Kraft. And they've just done a really good job spreading the ball around and finding ways to move the ball.
Yeah, I think it sort of represents they're not wedded to any particular way of playing in the passing game. Like they can go after wherever the gaps are. They've got receivers to take advantage of every potential weakness, and you need to be sound everywhere on defense, and that's a difficult thing to do. So this is a really challenging game, I think, for San Francisco.
It is. So Packers favored. I think coming into the season, probably the schedule makers anticipated we would have looked at this as a potential NFC championship preview, right?
Yeah.
The Eagles are up there. The Lions are up there as far as the best teams in the NFC. Niners need this one, man. I think they really need it. And then from a Packers perspective, this is still a potential statement game for them because I think the Niners are very much a very good team. And looks like George Kittle's back for the Niners as well. They need their playmakers, man. They need those dudes to take over. And then I'm just curious, like if the Niners do have a lead late, what happens, right? Is this becoming a trend where if they have a lead that they can't hold on to it? Any thoughts on Jordan Love so far this year in his play? Because we talked a lot last year about how well he played down the stretch. This was the time, right? Right around this time last year where they flipped the switch and were outstanding. They won that Thanksgiving game against Detroit, which was a big surprise. Can Love go on one of those runs? He hasn't really had one of those runs where he looked unstoppable last year.
So his career, you can almost, in terms of playing time, you can almost divide his career up into 3 blocks, right? There was like the first 8 games of last year. Then there was the kind of 8 games where he turned it on and became one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then there's been this season. And this season feels like it's split the difference between the two. Like the first 8 games of last year was sort of wildly inconsistent. It's like, okay, there's something here, but it's not great. And then boom, switch flipped. Suddenly he's laser accurate. He's delivering the ball exactly where it needs to be. He genuinely looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football. And then this year he's been in the middle. Like he's not hit the heights of last year yet, but he's been more accurate and a better. He's been at a consistently higher baseline than like the first 8 games of last year, but not quite back where he looked amazing. Hasn't picked up where he left off essentially. So and maybe this is his baseline. Like maybe last year either extreme was a little bit over the top, right? He wasn't as bad as literally the first 8 games he starts in the NFL, which makes sense. But neither was he as good as wow. He's about to be joining Mahomes and Josh Allen as elite top quarterback in football. Actually, he settled in somewhere in the middle, which is, reasonably high baseline, capable of spectacular plays, probably going to make some more mistakes than some other quarterbacks. And he's good. He's good, not great at the moment.
And as the chat reminds us, battled a lot of injuries this year. That's been a factor. I think he's played a little bit more consistent over these last few weeks. But yeah, I'm interested to see because look, from a Packers perspective, I'll say the same thing I said about the Texans. Their upside is still there. The Packers haven't even tapped into the superhuman-ish Jordan Love that we saw last year. Again, against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, against the Lions, falling away, pinpoint throws, rolling out, hitting dudes on the run. We haven't seen as much of that this year. Makes me think the Packers maybe even have a higher ceiling, and they're sitting here at 7-3 at this point with 2.5 wins from Malik Willis, basically. This year. So it's been impressive from the Packers. Over-under is 47.5 too, so Vegas expecting a lot of points from our friends over at FanDuel. Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I believe this might be a tough one for the 49ers.
I'm going to give the Niners one more chance here.
They need it, so they got to get it.
Yeah, they need it. It's on the road. I'm going to go with them. Harry's going to take the Packers. We did get the picks in.
This could be an emotional hedge for me because, if Green Bay wins, I was correct. And
you just called the Niners a top 5 Super Bowl contender.
That's what I mean. If Green Bay wins, it's great. It's good for my picks. But if they lose, then my mentions are more pleasant. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.